Hi, my name is Pat, and this is my channel, Book Chat with Pat, and I'm glad that you're here. Today I'm going to be doing the Beauty in Books tag, which was created by Ruben at To Readers It May Concern and by Emily at The Linguist's Library. I was tagged by John at Must Read More and by Nigel at Reading Ideas. Thank you, Ruben and Emily, for creating this tag, and thank you, John and Nigel, for tagging me. The first prompt is Beauty in Concept. For this prompt, I picked John Steinbeck's 1939 classic, The Grapes of Wrath. This novel won both the National Book Award and the Pulitzer Prize, and it was also cited many years later when Steinbeck was awarded the Nobel Prize. This is a quintessential American novel depicting the ultimate road trip. The Joad family, tenant farmers in Oklahoma, are forced off of their land because of drought, economic hardship, and changes in the agricultural world, which make it impossible for them to stay on the land. All of this occurs during the Great Depression. They set out with thousands of others on their way for California, seeing the promised land and a new and better life there. The novel depicts the central conflict between those who have and those who do not have. That is, have money, influence, and power. It's a novel that is central to the American experience, and it captures magnificently the social and political dynamics of a critical time in our nation's history. The second prompt is Beauty in Opening Lines. For this prompt, I picked Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God. And I'm going to read the opening lines of this novel. Ships at a distance have every man's wish on board. For some they come in with the tide. For others they sail forever on the horizon, never out of sight, never landing until the watcher turns his eyes away in resignation, his dreams mocked to death by time. That is the life of men. Now, women forget all those things they don't want to remember, and remember everything they don't want to forget. The dream is the truth. Then they act and do things accordingly. So the beginning of this was a woman, and she had come back from burying the dead. Not the dead of sick and ailing with friends at the pillow and the feet. She had come back from the sodden and the bloated, the sudden death, their eyes flung wide open in judgment. This is a novel that comes out of the Harlem Renaissance. It is one of the first significant novels written by an African American woman. This opening passage of the novel tells us that this is going to be a novel about having and pursuing one's dreams. It also tells us that men and women may approach their dreams and desires differently. This is going to be the story of Janie Crawford, the woman who's come back from burying the dead. She is a woman who pursues her dreams in spite of many obstacles. Obstacles which often come in the form of people who are supposed to love her, including her grandmother and the men that she eventually marries. This opening also introduces the idea of the horizon as a central image in the novel. It is an image that will recur and will come to represent the vastness of the potential of dreams. The third prompt is beauty in character. For this prompt, I have picked Percival Everett's novel, James. And the character I want to talk about is the title character himself, James. This is a magnificent character based on the character Jim in Mark Twain's novel, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. But it is also so much more than a retelling of Twain's novel. We see in Everett's version of the character an enslaved man of extreme intelligence, literacy, resourcefulness, and compassion. He teaches himself to read through the books in Judge Thatcher's library, and he teaches other enslaved people to read as well. Additionally, he teaches his family and other enslaved children to use the stereotypical slave diction in the presence of white people in order to pacify their expectations of how things are and are supposed to be. It shows his deep understanding of the racism of the society in which he lives, and also his commitment to his survival and the survival of his family. Although the primary goal that James has in the novel is to reunite his family, his wife and his daughter, he is also on a quest to reclaim his own agency by writing the narrative of his own life, which he does with a stolen pencil. And in the process of telling his own story, he renames himself James. I can't think of another character that has moved me more than James in Percival Everett's novel. The most moving character I've encountered this year. The fourth prompt is beauty amidst pain. For this one, I'm going to talk about Loved and Missed by Susie Boyt. This is a novel that I originally read for the BookTube Prize quarterfinals. It's a beautiful little book about the love of a mother for her drug-addicted daughter and for the granddaughter that she comes to raise. Mia Levitin, in her review of this novel, commented that Boyd, quote, sidesteps the cliches that often plague stories involving drug abuse, and it conveys the complexities of loving someone who can't love you back. That is exactly what made this book so earth-shattering, heartbreaking, and ultimately so extraordinary to me. The fifth prompt is beauty in incompleteness. And for this prompt, I'm going to talk about Geoffrey Chaucer's The Tales of Canterbury, written in the late 1300s. The premise of the Canterbury Tales is that it is a collection of stories told as a part of a contest by a group of pilgrims as they travel from London to Canterbury to visit the shrine of St. Thomas Becket at the Canterbury Cathedral. The pilgrim who tells the best story is to be rewarded with a free meal at the Tabard Inn on their return trip. Now, there are 30 pilgrims going on this pilgrimage, plus the host, Harry Bailey of the Tabard Inn, and the narrator, a man named Chaucer. So 32 people total, with 30 of them being pilgrims. Now, the contest is that each one shall tell 2 tales on the way to Canterbury and 2 tales on the way home. So that would be a total of 120 tales from the pilgrims, and it would be 128 if the narrator and the host decided to tell some tales too. But we're expecting to have 120 tales in the book. What we actually have in the Canterbury Tales is 24 tales. So clearly, Chaucer never completed this book. And it is generally believed that the work was left incomplete at Chaucer's death. Nonetheless, we have some great stories here and an incredible picture of medieval life in England. Plus, Chaucer is generally credited with popularizing the use of the vernacular English in literature at a time when those who could write wrote primarily in Latin, Italian, or French. The 6th prompt is beauty in place. I had a lot of possibilities for this one, but I decided to go with David Guterson's novel, Snow Falling on Cedars. This is a novel about World War II and about the years immediately following the war. It opens in 1954 with a Japanese-American man on trial for murder. He is also a veteran of World War II. Then it flashes back in time to the days preceding the U.S. involvement in World War II. And then it also describes the war years. Much of the novel takes place on a fictional island, San Pedro, a fishing village off the coast of the state of Washington. The setting figures prominently in the entire novel. The island is a place where, prior to the war, Asian Americans and Caucasian Americans had more or less peacefully coexisted, although there was clear evidence of racism and bigotry just under the surface. The island tends to shape relationships, and it figures prominently throughout the novel because it determines people's livelihood as well. There's a relationship between 2 characters, 2 of the main characters in the time before the war. One of these is a Caucasian and one is a Japanese American. And this relationship is considered taboo. And so it can only exist in a setting that is outside of the regular society. And so it takes place in a forest, specifically in and around a cedar tree, because it can only exist outside of the boundaries of this very structured society where such a relationship would be considered inappropriate and improper. Other features of the setting, such as the weather, also figure prominently throughout the novel, specifically in the form of rain and snowstorms. And these storms occur in such a way as to reinforce the idea of the community's isolation, and also to show how much is really beyond the realm of human control. Prompt number 7, beauty in time. For this prompt, I am going to talk about Michael Cunningham's novel, The Hours. This beautiful novel is a non-linear narrative that unfolds through the perspectives of 3 different women living in 3 different decades. In the 1920s, we have Virginia Woolf, who is writing the novel Mrs. Dalloway outside of London, where she's also struggling with her own mental illness. In the 1940s, in Los Angeles, we have the story of Laura Brown, who is reading Virginia Woolf's novel, Mrs. Dalloway. And in 1999, modern day, and the book was written in 1999, we have Clarissa Vaughn in New York. And she is planning a party to celebrate the award, a major literary award, that was won by her good friend Richard, who is a poet, who also happens to be dying of AIDS. And somehow these 3 storylines in these 3 different timelines eventually all intertwine in the most breathtaking of ways. The last prompt is beauty in catharsis. I know how this is supposed to work, but I feel like the idea of catharsis never quite works. When we speak about catharsis in a work of literature, specifically in a dramatic work, in a tragedy, we're talking about the emotional release that is supposed to occur in the audience, in the reader, in the viewer of the play at the end of a tragedy. I'm never sure that this quite makes sense to a modern audience. If we're, say, watching a Shakespearean tragedy, I am not sure that what I feel at the end of a tragedy, as part of as a modern reader, part of a modern audience, I'm never sure that what I experience could be described as an emotional cleansing, or even a release of tension. I'm thinking of King Lear because I just read this this past week. And this is certainly one of Shakespeare's greatest tragedies. I'm not sure that what I experience at the end of that play could be called catharsis. The suffering is so great in this play, so totally over the top, so absolute, with no chance of redemption for anyone. And not a real sense either at the end of the play that order is now going to be restored. And this is all so absolute that I don't feel as a reader or as a member of the audience that I experience an emotional cleansing because the tragedy is just so devastating. I'm left with devastating sorrow and hopelessness at the end of King Lear. Maybe Hamlet would be a better choice, and I don't know if it works here either. At the end of Hamlet, we're left with a bloodbath. Most of the main characters are dead at the end of Hamlet. But I guess there is at least a sense that order is going to be restored. Young Fortinbras has come in. He is going to assume the throne. Order will be restored. Hamlet is promised a soldier's burial. And there is Horatio at the end of the play. And Horatio is left to tell Hamlet's story to future generations. So maybe in Hamlet there is some sense of emotional release at the end for the reader, for the viewer, more so than in King Lear. But I struggle with this concept. So that's the beauty in books tag. This was a very thought-provoking tag, and I really enjoyed putting this together. If you are watching and you feel tempted to do this tag, please consider yourself tagged. But I will do, as I usually do, I will name some specific people as well. So I tag Hannah's books, Read and Reread, Genre Books 23, Books, Songs, and Other Magic, Stuart Griffin, Literary Love 123, Rayner Reads Stuff, A Web of Stories, David Novak Reads Poetry, Robert G. Reader of Books, Roy Reads Anything, Culture Den, Will Chambers, Joe Spivey, Aaron Read a Book, Troy Treadup, Alex Unabridged, and Heather Gregg 9975. I tried to check the people who tagged me. I tried to see who else they were tagging. So I tried not to double up and tag people who have already been tagged. If I have tagged you and you've already been tagged, I'm sorry. That just means that I was thinking of you. And really, anybody who's watching this, if you would like to do this, please do it. Very, very thought-provoking tag that I really enjoyed doing. Okay, that's it. So, as always, I thank you for watching. I hope that you're doing well. I'll speak with you again soon. Take care.